Hello, hello. Welcome to Healthy Perspectives, a podcast that takes on current cultural and social issues through a clinical lens. Hello. All right. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your time. And today we're doing episode number 3 of You're the Problem. Remember, this is based on empathy. The idea is to try to look at multiple angles, infuse empathy into a situation. That means to attempt to understand the different perspectives and come away with a reasonable perspective on a given situation, whether that be like my very first ones, clips of movies, or like some of my later ones, which most of those are culturally related or politically related. The idea here is to expand our ability to see the world more accurately, because there is a reality that exists whether you like it or not. So your tip of the day today is, if it looks like a tantrum, sounds like a tantrum, and is coming from a grown man, you're not looking at a leader. That tip of the day is coming out of some of the recent events where we had a senator. And look, I know there are political tantrums all the time. I'm not naive. I've seen many of them, but most of them have some sort of civility or decorum to them. Sometimes, every once in a while, we see one that just goes unhinged. And that's what happened this week. We had Senator Padilla go unhinged. Frankly, he threw a grown man tantrum and like a little boy. And I don't know the guy, but what I can tell you is what I saw is not leadership. And I'm going to make the case, but what I'm going to do is do it through the lens of empathy. Okay. Through the lens of empathy, because look, he's got a message. His message may or may not be what you want to hear, but it's a message. He has been elected as a leader as of right now, which I'll get into, what our options are. If you don't like what he's doing or whatever, we'll do that later on. But let's go into this with an open mind, that maybe it's a good guy with a bad tantrum. Okay. That's what my premise is maybe he's a good guy. Maybe he's got real good agenda items. This is a bad tantrum. I'll explain. So California, which is where Senator Padilla is from, is a disaster. Like I recently did a podcast on California specifically. Like, it may look like a 10, but it behaves like a 1. This is not the boy or the girl or the man or the woman that you want to date. Not at all. California is a disaster, and it needs to be addressed. They routinely act in foolish, nonsensical ways, and their patterns don't really shift. They are a front runner for stupidity, frankly. And they have been for a long time. This isn't new news. I'm not like breaking on Healthy Perspectives channel. No, this is not new. They are a disaster in California as a whole. And unfortunately, like I said, it's beautiful. And there are pockets where it is real reasonable. I will show you at least one of those today as well, where there's people being reasonable. There are reasonable people in California, but there seems to be this really unhealthy, absurd amount of people who are not, which I will also make that case today. So let's set the stage. We here at Healthy Perspectives strongly believe that protesting is good. Protesting is good. Frankly, it's very important. The voice for me as a therapist, the voice of my client matters. It does matter. And clients can be wrong. Clients can choose to do unhealthy things and repeat unhealthy patterns. And that's wrong. And you might say, well, that's not wrong for them. No, it is. It is wrong for them. It's going to cause them additional pain and suffering that they don't need to deal with. However, in a clinical setting, they have what we call autonomy, the right to choose. They could get up and leave the office. Great. If they choose to do that because I say to them, look, what you're doing is hurting you. This is not in your best interest based on your own morality, your own standards of expectations. This is not what's in your best interest. And if you choose to do it, I will choose to love you anyway. But that doesn't mean I like what you're doing, and it doesn't mean I'm going to condone it. I will not support it. I won't condone it. And you still have the autonomy. Now, translate that into social and cultural settings. There are laws that protect structures, buildings, property, and people. Why? Because you can't have autonomy anywhere and everywhere you want. It doesn't work that way. If you visit a jail or a prison and you enter that jail or prison, you are losing your autonomy. You can't just walk right out. They have to let you out. If something crazy goes on in there and you incite a problem in that facility, you will be detained and not released because you don't have certain autonomy rights when you're visiting. Even if you're just visiting, you did nothing illegal or wrong on entry. Once you enter it, there are certain rights that have to disappear for safety reasons. Okay. So let's go into what is a protest. A protest is where people voice an opinion as a group, and they do so without breaking a single law. Great. Go into a public space where it's appropriate. Get permits if you're required to get permits. Go into those public spaces. Voice your opinion. If you're not breaking any laws, that's a protest. Great. Love it. Do more of it. Don't care. I'll join ones if I think they're necessary and important. However, once it turns to property damage or violence, it is no longer a protest. So what is it at that point? It is either we have one wild, crazy person who is breaking the law, or it manifests into a riot, which we saw on January 6th. We saw a protest turn riot. We saw it again in 2020 with the Antifa and BLM. Protests turned riot. We saw it again in LA with the protests turned riot. That's not okay. That is unacceptable. And I'm going to make a strong case here. All right. So hang with me. What I'm going to do is, for those of you who are following along on Rumble and YouTube, you are going to get the opportunity to see the video that others may only be able to hear. So I encourage everybody for this next snippet, if you can, obviously not if you're driving, please don't do that. But if you can, follow along on Rumble or YouTube, and you will have access to seeing exactly what we are talking about. Okay. So this first video, I'm going to make sure my volume is up good. The first video that I have, perfect. What we have here is what we would call a peaceful protest. And if you can't see that this is peaceful, you're part of the problem. So let me show you. There were two things I was hoping to share in that particular video. Number one, it was being done in a public space. There actually might be a third thing. The second is traffic was flowing. It might have been a little bit slow, but nobody was impeding traffic. So no laws were being broken in the road, in the streets. The sidewalk, for those of you who could see it, the sidewalk was also free moving. There were people able to flow through the sidewalk. That, my friends, is a peaceful protest. That is what we want to see. And I don't even really care what you're protesting. If you do it like that, peacefully, I'm on board. That's great. And if you don't, you're part of the problem. Okay, so let's go on to the next video. This next clip is kind of interesting. What we see in this next clip, for those of you who are following along, what we see is a different version of a protest. It's once it flips to become a riot. So those of you who are following along, you're going to see right at the front end, there is somebody holding what looks like a big cinder block, concrete something, in their hands. Let's see what these people in LA during this most recent riot activity were doing. Folks, for those of you who couldn't see, that was not a peaceful protest. That, in fact, was people throwing blocks, bricks, concrete at police cars. Those police cars were empty, minus one. For those of you who were following along, you saw one police car driving and they were throwing stuff at it. They had destroyed a sign and threw it over the bridge onto a freeway where police cars were. That, my friends, is destruction of property, violence toward the driver that was in that police car. Like, this is not okay. On top of that, what you have here is cars going the other direction, probably a little bit nervous for their lives because the bridge obviously goes over the freeway, and like that, it's just civilian cars, not police cars. There were scooters. There were all kinds of things on the freeway, clearly impeding traffic, breaking laws. Folks, that is not a peaceful or even mostly peaceful protest. That is a riot. And that is unacceptable. So Senator Padilla is upset because I'm going to let you hear his words on this, but because he believes that for whatever reason, this behavior was incited by Donald Trump sending in the National Guard, the Marines, and trying to create safety in the city of LA. He thinks that, in fact, had the opposite effect, which I'm going to let you hear his words on it, and then we'll get right back to it. So without further ado, give me a second, and I'm going to pull up his video. I'm going to share that directly with you. What he said, by the way, in a leadership capacity on the floor in the Senate, most likely, he was presenting his concerns. So this is actually a good example of leadership. So let's follow, or at least whether it's a good example or not, let's at least give him the courtesy of saying it was a reasonable leadership effort, because some of you are not going to agree with him and some of you will.
Donald Trump is continuing to test the boundaries of his power, and he's surrounded himself with yes men and underqualified attack dogs, from the DHS secretary to the FBI director to the secretary of defense, who will rubber stamp every anti-democratic step he takes. This administration's officials And maybe not all, but many Republicans in Congress may choose not to do their job, but they cannot stop me from doing mine. If you really think this is just about immigrants and immigration, it's time to wake up. What's happening is not just a threat to California, it's a threat to everyone in every state. If Donald Trump can bypass the governor and activate the National Guard to put down protests on immigrant rights, he can do it to suppress your rights too. If he can deploy the Marines to Los Angeles without justification, he can deploy them to your state too. And if he can ignore due process, strip away First Amendment rights, and disappear people to foreign prisons without their day in court, he can do it to you too.
Folks, in this particular section, first of all, the reason I chose that one, just so you know, was what Alex Padilla, Senator Padilla, put out himself. You notice it was edited, which is fine. Like, all of the politicians are going to have their videos professionally edited and all that kind of stuff. Great, I'm happy for them, right? But he said a lot of things in there, folks. A lot of that. Look, if you can't see that in this particular forum, doing it in this particular way, he is being a political leader, whether you agree with him or not. If you can't see that, you're part of the problem. Now, if you disagree with him, there's things that you can do. If you agree with him, there's also things that you can do. But if you can't see that he's being a good leader in that particular forum, on that particular agenda, at least politically, you're part of the problem, because that is what we would expect from our senators, our congressmen. Okay. So why is Senator Padilla in the media? Well, because he doesn't behave like that all the time. He doesn't act professional with civil discourse. No, even if what he said is true or lies, it's irrelevant to me at the moment. Because when we're looking at this, we're saying that is how a senator should behave appropriately, with civility. And how should a senator not behave? Well, let me show you that real quick. This absolutely boggles my mind, how a senator thinks that this is reasonable. This is nothing more than a grown-up tantrum. This is a grown-up acting like a 5-year-old. And I think that should be left to the 5-year-olds. Grown-ups should not behave like this.
Exaggerating and embellishing. Sir, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your
I also want to talk
hands
about
off.
specifically how many of our ICE agents have been docked.
On the ground. On the ground. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go, I put behind my back.
All right. Cool. Other hand. Lay flat. Lay flat. Other hand, sir. Other hand.
There's no recording allowed out here. I did not know. There's no recording allowed out here.
Okay, folks. So what did we just see? What we just saw, folks, was a tantrum. There's no way around it. I literally have heard people out there, podcasters, news organizations, saying he was forcefully thrown to the floor and attacked. And look, I showed it to you because of all the lies that you hear. I showed you from the moment he went into a meeting he was not part of. Now, you could argue that maybe he should have been able to set a meeting with the people that he was trying to get to, Kristi Noem, but he didn't do that. Maybe Kristi Noem has been ignoring him. And so he was like, I can't get to her, so I'm going to do what I can. That's fine. Great. Go. But as soon as he's not wanted in that space, he made it known who he was. As soon as he was not wanted in that space, what gave him the right to be in that space forcefully? Because he was not resisting the arrest per se, but he was pushing in there like a 5-year-old would, trying to get into something they wanted to be part of. That is unacceptable behavior. And if you can't see that, you're part of the problem. That is not how a senator should behave. It's unacceptable. What was his motivation for doing that? Some people think that his motivation for doing that was to draw attention to what he thinks is going on with Donald Trump. Okay, maybe. Well, let's take a look at what is going on. And look, I have perused. Maybe I haven't looked at it the right way. Maybe like somebody out there might come up with something different, but I have yet to find, like he said in his comments in the video I showed before this, that he believes that Donald Trump is inciting violent behavior by sending in the Marines and the National Guard to protect LA. Well, what actually, in reality, as far as I can tell, has been going on is the troops that went into LA are protecting certain properties. Well, what properties, you might ask? Looks like the federal buildings. And I have yet not at all seen where the troops are doing more than protecting federal buildings. And that is the right of the federal government. So the administration does have the right to protect those spaces, from as far as I can tell. And if you see something different, please, by all means, give me the evidence. I would love to see it, but I have not yet seen any place where the Marines were doing anything other than protecting federal buildings. So this is outside of a federal building. These are Marines. Let's take a look and see what's happening. Folks, this goes on for another minute or so. I don't want to waste your time with it. There's absolutely nothing new going on that you haven't seen already in that video. What I wanted you to see was it wasn't aggressive. The Marines had the right to be there because their commander-in-chief said, you keep an eye on our space. If we're going to have a riot in LA, don't let it affect our doors, our property. Based on what I saw with police cars, city of LA, police cars being absolutely destroyed, which, by the way, that's tens of thousands of dollars out of taxpayer pockets to fix, repair, or replace those vehicles. tens of thousands, probably with the number that we saw there, probably hundreds of thousands, maybe multiple hundreds. And that was one super short video. Folks, the Marines were called in to protect the federal buildings. And if you can't see that, you're part of the problem. You're just seeing what you want to see. That simple. So in conclusion, I gotta wrap with this. Our leaders have to do better. The Senate has to do better. The boundaries that are in place have to be held. During chaos, rigidity is the answer. Once the chaos stops, in this case, the riots, and it really truly becomes peaceful protest, then rigidity can be loosened a bit. But until then, the more chaos, the more rigid. That is a natural, psychological, sociological process. You increase rigidity, you are going to increase chaos. You increase chaos, you will increase rigidity. Okay, that they work like that. They correlate like that. So my message to the Senate is do your stinking job, please. Act like grown men and women. Behave like grown men and women. Talk like grown men and women. And when a senator like Alex Padilla steps way out of line, there are some actions, some recourse that should occur. There's 4 of them, I believe, that are the Senate has at hand. Censure. They can censure any senator. That basically just means that they, by majority vote, they can silence somebody. Okay. They can reprimand. That more or less is just a public slap on the hand. Okay. Like that, it's not really that big of a deal, but it does put a little tick in their little, their little folder that says, watch yourself. Okay. So it's not nothing. They can be fined or they can lose committee assignments. Do it. When a senator is out of line, use the tools that you have to correct the behavior. This is unacceptable. And the most harsh of them all, when a senator acts way out of line, they can expel him. They can be expelled. The Senate needs to do their job. And I understand that sometimes you're going to have to walk close to that line. I do. I get it. Culture sometimes requires that. Politics sometimes requires that. But at no time should that line be crossed. And when it is, there should be swift, rigid, boundary-related responses. Not I hate you. It's that this kind of discourse is unacceptable. Okay? This podcast today is about empathy. If you cannot see both sides of this, you are part of the problem. Or I should say all sides of this. From riots and protests to grown-ups acting like grown-ups or grown-ups acting like children, to all the damage that's being done, to protests being. Hey everybody, thanks for listening. We appreciate our audience a lot, so we give you some simple ways to track us down. Please like, subscribe, and follow all the podcasts on different platforms, but you can also email us at healthyperspectives@protonmail.com, or you can check out our website at healthy-perspectives.com/podcast. It's a backward slash. So if you want to go to our landing page, if you go to healthy-perspectives.com, you'll still find us. You just got to click on the podcast button. Thank you so much.